Ronnie Cox from the Meek Library, the electronic resource librarian, and we were really excited to bring this to you, and we're excited that we can have a very comprehensive panel to talk about cybersecurity, which is a big topic in today's world, which most people wouldn't think would hit academics, but is actually becoming a big problem for academics. So we're excited to have the panel, and I'm going to hand it over to my co-helper, Miss Lily.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Welcome to our Shared Missions in Cybersecurity panel. As she mentioned, I am Dr. Lily Ferris from the Department of Computer Science here at UTM. I teach computer science and cybersecurity courses for the university, and it's my pleasure to serve as moderator of the panel today. We're here during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a time when campuses, agencies, and organizations across the country pause and highlight the importance of protecting our digital spaces, working together to keep our communities safe. And so cybersecurity, it's more than technology. It's collaboration, it's ethics, it's education, and it's awareness. And it's also deeply human, built on partnerships between law enforcement, higher education, and everyday users like us. So today's panel brings together experts from multiple perspectives, from state agencies, campus law enforcement, security administrators, faculty, and students, all united by a shared goal, understanding how we can strengthen cybersecurity through awareness, collaboration, and action. So I'd like to start by inviting each panelist to briefly introduce themselves, share your name, your role, or organization, and maybe a sentence or two about what connects you to cybersecurity. Let's start with Blanca, and then we'll move down the line.
Hi, my name is Blanca. I am a senior here at UT Martin studying computer science with a minor in cybersecurity, and I want to pursue my master's in cybersecurity, and I think cybersecurity is just very important to educate ourselves.
Hello, I'm CJ Gladish. I am a major in cybersecurity with a minor in computer science. I'm also the co-founder of DevHawks, a computer science organization here on campus. I think cybersecurity is a really important issue, especially in today, and it's something that really interests me.
Derek Miller. I'm a special agent with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. I'm assigned to TBI Cybercrime and Digital Evidence Unit as a part of our Cybercrime Investigation Squad. So I investigate things like network intrusions, internet facilitated fraud, otherwise known as scams. That is my only role at TBI, so cybersecurity, or sometimes the lack thereof, is the reason for my existence, so very important.
Hello, I'm Bob Bradley. I'm the chair of computer science here. I have been teaching for over 20 years, and before that I worked here in the IT department for about 10 years.
I'm Michael O'Neill. I'm the Director of Public Safety and the Chief of Police here at UT Martin. I have 30 years in law enforcement. I have 2 years here at the university. For about 8 years of my career, I did computer forensics and computer crime investigations. I served on the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and the Secret Service FBI's Electronic Crimes Task Force. So I don't have as much involvement now working in law enforcement because a lot of it gets redirected to this guy, but I have a background in it.
I'm Brian Stubblefield. I'm the IT security administrator here on campus. I've been in this role since about 2016, and I've been at the university for 21 years. Cybersecurity, it grows. The importance of it grows more and more every day with as fast as things are coming out, new attacks and new threats. So it's very important.
Thank you so much. Let's begin by grounding our conversation in experience. So for those of you working or having worked directly in the field, cybersecurity is not abstract. It's something that you see unfold in real time. So can you share a moment in your career when you realized just how important cybersecurity is, and not just as a field, but as a responsibility? And we can start with Special Agent Miller.
I didn't, I always wanted to work in law enforcement, but I did not seek out cybercrime. Throughout my time growing before college, throughout college, afterwards, I kind of bounced around in my mind of what I wanted to do. this sort of found me. I started in this realm as a digital forensics examiner, so going through phones and computers looking for evidence of a crime or a lack thereof, and eventually have found myself as a cybercrime investigator. And what's striking to me is just the profound loss associated with these crimes. As it relates to financial crimes, what we call internet facilitated financial crimes, scams, they're the most lucrative crime out there. The offenders can sit in their living room anywhere in the world, and as long as the victim is on some internet connected system, they can steal, every day. It's nothing for a victim to lose $100,000. These are people often at the end of their careers, in the last stages of their life, and they've spent their whole life working to amass a comfortable retirement, which they can end up losing over a span of a couple days. And the impact on victims is unlike any other crime. The amount of effect on a person is unrelated to any other crime, and it's only going to get worse. As one of you all mentioned, this is an ever-evolving industry. Things change every day. If you stepped away for 6 months and came back, you'd be outdated. And so it's very important for us to keep up, and it's going to be very important that we train the next generation to come in and tackle these things that are coming out literally as we speak.
I started out majoring in computer science in college when there were not cybersecurity degrees offered anywhere. And I went out of computer science and went into law enforcement as a major. And I like to tell everybody that I like doing computer stuff as a hobby. When I had started going to school for it and realizing I was looking at the idea of doing it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week as a job, it became less appealing, and law enforcement sounded more exciting. I did law enforcement for 3 years, and I ended up doing computer stuff for my department because I was good at it, so I ended up sitting behind a desk staring at a computer 8 hours a day, 5 days a week anyway. But I think I realized that cybersecurity was important from the beginning. In fact, I was accused all the time of being the person that was hacking into our department's network, but it was showing them why they have weaknesses and how to deal with them. But way down the road, one of the things that hit me about the importance of cybersecurity and awareness is my own godson was a victim of a catfishing that devastated both him. He was a 15-year-old at the time, and fell for a catfishing attack and sent some images to what he thought was a girl that was a 30-year-old man in another country. Like I said, it devastated him and his family, and that carried over to me and my family too. So I try to get a lot of that awareness out there, people not falling victims to these things still to this day.
Thank you both. Along these same lines, what's something that people might not realize about the human side of responding to cyber threats? And I'll toss it over to a student first, and Blanca Negri, you can start out.
I think something that a lot of people don't notice is, like, in the human side, when you're in the cybersecurity realm, it's very high stakes, high pressure, because in these moments we need to make decisions. So, like, in my class we do a lot of tabletop activities, so we try to replicate these events like once we get into the career field. And in these fields, if we were to mess up, it has effects on everyone, since we are in charge of providing the security of others. So I think a lot of people don't take into consideration of that. And I think it's also important to note, when we do security of networks, humans are the biggest error. So our human error is what's going to cause security effects. And so in the way, if we have someone entering credentials in like a phishing scam, like, they aren't aware of that. And so without like the proper security measures and the proper training, humans are the ones that make networking the biggest weakness.
Special Agent O'Neill, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can top that. I had a point to make later, but you can follow all the best practices, you can do all the things, you can have the beefy security system, but at the end of the day, it just takes one person with a little bit of access to be compromised to tear down an entire corporation. That was an excellent response, and I totally agree.
Thank you.
Mr. Stubblefield?
Yeah, I think what people really don't understand, kind of like what Blanca said, is kind of how stressful it is, especially on the defensive side. Attackers, they have all the time in the world, and they've got all the time. But as a defender, we have to get it right all the time. Attacker just has to get it right one time. So that's very stressful. When something does happen, and it probably will, you've got to have plans in place. So it's super important to have all the planning, have all your responses in place, because when an incident does happen, it's high stress, and you've got to have your documentation to go off of, and new vulnerabilities, new attack paths are coming out all the time, and AI is just accelerating that. So it's a very stressful position as a part of a defender.
Thank you. Without revealing any sensitive details for those who've worked in industry, is there one case or incident that really stayed with you, something that shapes how you think about this work? And I'll just open it up.
I've gotten the great fortune to work several network intrusion cases. Those are kind of my favorite. If I had to say that someone else's misfortune is my favorite, but those are really interesting puzzles to work. But the ones where people lose everything on a scam are by far the most significant and have the longest lasting effect to me. I had one particular case. The individual had worked her whole life as a nurse, and her husband had died about 6 months before the incident. She met someone online through a social media application. She would probably say that she fell in love with that person. In hindsight, none of it makes sense, but in the moment, when you just need some human connection, we all have to recognize that we could all be her. And she cashed in her 401k and sent it to the individual. She'll probably have to work till the day she dies because of the human side. No fault to her, no judgment. It is tragic. It is by far the worst part of what maybe is not typically considered security, cybersecurity, but these are things that happen on the internet, and unfortunately things that we have to address, and it is tragic.
I think one that really sticks out to me is probably the first real investigation that I was involved with as IT security administrator. There had been some allegation of cyberbullying or harassment between students. And they were using one of these free encrypted anonymous apps to send these messages. So that made it even more difficult to kind of prove, right? So public safety had an idea of who it was. So they had gotten a subpoena already for the account information for that app. And I just remember, looking through lines and lines of firewall logs, just trying to see what I could piece together. And I remember, there's a string that kept coming up in some traffic, unencrypted traffic that I could see. And, I remember sitting on the couch watching TV and just kind of playing things over, and then it kind of dawned on me what had happened. The free texting app that student was using had ads. So it was ad supported. The text messages were encrypted, the ad traffic wasn't. So I was able to tie the ad traffic to the student's texting app, so because it had a unique identifier that dealt with advertisements. Mm-hmm. So we were able to determine without a doubt that yes, this student did it. And the whole reason I got into computers and cyber was just to help people, and it was one of those, it kind of felt good. I was helping another student, protect another student from harassment like that nobody's got time for.
Yeah. Mr. O'Neill.
One of the things I have in my notes from that previous question was echoing that the weakest link in security is human, not hardware. But I also, kind of going along with this, have some notes about the emotional toll that responders can have. And, from our perspective as public safety here, the first thing we get is the victim contacting us, and they're traumatized. And on the investigation thing, a lot of times it's IT and it's TBI that now takes over the investigation, but we have the initial talking with the victim, and trying to put them in a better place because they're scared, they're embarrassed, they're confused. When I started out, as I was saying, the first thing I did on the computer crime investigation side of things was working for Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So cybercrime, there's 4 big elements to cybercrime. There's child victimization, there's child pornography, there's fraud, and there's the hacking, malware, computer intrusion element of it. And my end of it starting out was with the child pornography and the child victimization. And so I had a lot of cases that involved that, where we're either investigating accusations of somebody sharing child pornography. A lot of that leads to there's a child victim there. An early one that hit me was actually because I was assigned to an investigation, and I was looking through a computer that we had seized, looking for evidence of child pornography, and I found pictures that looked, it was nothing, these pictures were not necessarily anything illegal, but this person was going to beaches and pools, and he was taking pictures of underage girls, and one of them looked exactly like my sister-in-law, to the point where I had to, because it was from behind, because this person was taking pictures, as secretly as he could. So I was trying to get a good look at her face when that they didn't have it, and it really started to hit home. And you started thinking, this could be a relative of yours. So that goes into there's an emotional trauma for the responders too, for the people that deal with this every day. And the reason, honestly, the reason why I got out of doing it was because 8 years of looking at child porn and child victimization. I left on military deployment, and when I came back from the military deployment, they said, do you want to go back to doing the computer crime investigations? And I said, no, thank you. I'd rather not ever see these again or deal with it again. So.
Thank you for sharing these experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about collaboration and cross-disciplinary work now. And one thing I love about cybersecurity is how interconnected it is. No one can do it alone. It's a team effort. And so could you share some examples of collaboration that you've had between law enforcement, higher education, private industry, that have really made a difference? And what makes those partnerships work? I can start with you again.
Well, again, my experience, the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is a conglomeration of agencies that you have an investigator, people from multiple different departments, and you're taking their talents and using them to try to fight crimes against children. And then working on the Secret Service's Electronic Crime Task Force was the same thing. It's a partnership between local law enforcement, state, federal agents, academic university researchers. None of this could be done by any one element by itself. So, and doing what we do here, it's having to have close ties with our partners. We don't have the resources here as a small university police department to fully investigate. We have to have support from IT, TBI, and the FBI to do any of this.
I work at the TBI, obviously, and I'm also a task force officer at FBI, so I was busting their chops earlier, but I work with those guys down in Memphis and Jackson quite often, and I'm fortunate in that in both locations, the supervisors understand the importance of partnerships and relationships and have sort of paved the way and established those long before me. But we have, not only for research and education, but for information sharing and even intelligence, we have great partnerships with universities all over the state. I cover West Tennessee, but I have partners in all 4 regions, and in each one of those, I think we could call out a few universities where we have those relationships, maybe recruitment even of the next generation. And then as far as the private sector goes, you know, we develop some of our own tools, but for the most part, we couldn't do this without them in getting the tools and the threat intelligence, what's happening next. There are a lot of great private partners that do some research that we highly value, so we couldn't do it without those relationships, as you alluded to.
Thank you both. So let's now turn our attention towards like education and awareness, the proactive side of cybersecurity. What kinds of threats are becoming more common, and how are you and your teams preparing for them? So, Mr. O'Neill, would you like to pick it up again?
Yeah, and I have a book written on this one, so I'll try to keep it to just one thing because I know everybody's got something to add on this. You know, social engineering scams are rampant. Online exploitation and sextortion are rampant. Continuous training is the key to this. One of the things I want to talk about that I thought was a little bit insightful was about ransomware attacks, and you can probably say more on that too. But you know, I used to have this idea with ransomware attacks that if that happened to your business, because this happens at universities, this happens at big agencies. I don't know if any of you are aware of St. Paul, Minnesota had an attack. I don't know that it was ransomware, but they had their entire network hacked and taken down to the point where their phone lines didn't work, their computers didn't work. Luckily, on the law enforcement side of things, the 911 dispatch is run by the county, not by the city, so 911 wasn't affected, but the police officers and their squads couldn't use their phones anymore. They couldn't use their laptops anymore. You know, this was a major intrusion. Things like this happen to businesses as ransomware, where they hack them and they tell them, okay, pay us $10 million and we'll give you your data back. And I thought, well, you call the FBI, you know, you refuse to pay, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what the FBI is telling these businesses? They're telling them you probably should pay them because we can't get your data back. These ransomware attacks are being run overseas by very effective groups. And one interesting thing was that we used to get reports of ransomware attacks coming out of Russia. That they would investigate it. They would find, okay, there's this hacker here at this location in Russia, and they would contact the Russian government and tell them about it, and the Russian government would say, we got this, and the next day they would send a picture of they got the person in custody, here he's in handcuffs. Well, it turned out that it was what the Russians were using as a little bit of a recruiting tool. Now you know you got a good hacker, so you take them, and now they're working for the Russian government. And they're still doing the exact same thing, just, you know, under their protection. But in a lot of cases, because it's overseas, because we can't reach out and do anything about it, they're telling them, you know, if you have to have your data back, you're probably going to have to pay. But you can negotiate with them. You know, when they're asking a small business for $10 million, that business doesn't make $10 million a year. They say, well, I don't have $10 million, or, you know, I've got backups of things. You're hurting me, but not to the extent that you think you're hurting me. But they run these things like a business. You end up paying them, and they give you a key to decrypt your now encrypted data. And if you can't make it work, they have a tech support that will make it work, because they're running it like a business. And if they don't give you your data back, nobody's going to pay anymore. So that was something that I always found interesting, and yet scary to know that, you know, we can't just solve all these things and give people their lives back and their data back. That's why, and that goes into, again, I'm sorry I turned this into a long one, but that goes into the importance of security on the front end. You know, none of us like the multi-factor authentication thing because it's a pain. but there's reasons for it, and that's preventing this from happening because we can't always fix it after it happens.
Thank you. Mr. Stubblefield?
Yeah, I'll just echo what he said about, social engineering based attacks and just scams in general. Whether it's callback phishing, refund scams, tech support scams, and even in my hometown, we've got active warrant scams where the sheriff's department calls people and says, we're coming to get you, you can give us money, and we won't, which is totally not how it works. So, and on campus, what we do is focus on awareness and education, because the technical controls only go so far. So cybersecurity is about the technology, it's about processes, and it's about people. And technology can only go so far when it comes to scams and social engineering. So we try to raise awareness the best we can on campus, with annual training, just awareness. We do like newsletter articles, things like that, just trying to raise awareness to say, hey, these are the things that we're seeing, and here's what scammers are doing right now. So educating people on how to recognize these, and then what to do with them when they come in. You've got the reporting, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. You've got to know all of that when it comes to reporting these. We do the technology. We've got the spam filters. We've got a post-delivery AI system that checks. So, we're just trying to cover all the bases that we can, and if one fails, we've got another one that picks up. So we're not just reliant on one thing. We've got layers of security to help protect us against these. And if you know something, you can educate others, because if you get excited about something, you're more likely to tell somebody about it. So if you tell people at work and you tell people at home, that's a win for everybody. So.
Mr. Bradley, would you like to add a few cents from the computer science department?
Well, I'm just thinking, with AI today, I know my parents several years ago, they got a call on the phone, this is your granddaughter, I'm down in Florida, my car's broke, somebody stole all my money, please send me money, give me your credit card. And luckily they couldn't hear enough, they asked one of us to talk to them, and we figured out it was a scam. But nowadays, they can use AI, they can make it sound like the person that you're talking to, and pretty soon they'll be able to make it look like the person live that you're talking to with the way AI. So we have that. And then everything is online now. I mean, our money's online, your work is online, everything you do is on, email is online. So we've just got to, as we, teach our students or whatever, we've got to tell them to be more cautious and, make sure their program is correct, and be aware that, just about 15 years ago, I used to run a server, and every day I'd get in and look at the logs, and every day it was thousands of, hey, these people tried to break into the server. So it's just, students need to be more aware of what's out there.
Special Agent Miller, would you
No,
like to add
all
anything?
very good answers.
All right, perfect. So in your experience, what's one common misconception you see among students or the public about cybersecurity? So I'm going to ask one of our students, CJ Gladish, to weigh in on this first.
So personally, I think that cybersecurity is one of those fields that just has so many misconceptions. Probably one of the biggest ones I can think of is that cybersecurity is just one thing that people just do alone, right? That people can just wear all the hats and can figure everything out themselves. And when I started getting more into cybersecurity and started working in IT, I started realizing that you can't do everything yourself. You have to rely on everybody else. As Dr. Ferris said earlier, it's very much a team-oriented, almost like a sport. You have to make sure that everybody's on the same page and working together. And I think that's just a big misconception. That, and they think that there's just this one mastermind that's in like a black hoodie, that's just figuring everything out and hacking into the mainframe, if you will. But it's just way more than that, and it requires everybody to really work together.
Okay, Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, I think one common misconception that I've heard, especially from students, is I want to work in cybersecurity so I don't have to work with people. You know, that is completely false. You know, cybersecurity, again, deals with technology, processes, and people. So I do, you know, I get to talk to people every day, and that's one of the good parts of my job is talking to people and discussing cybersecurity and how to protect them and how to protect their families at home. And I like talking about, you know, like talking to people about cybersecurity. And, you know, people, it's true, people may be our biggest risk, but they are also our biggest asset. So, you know, the better we can do to help them, then the better off we are.
Thank you. Special Agent Miller?
We've all, everybody here other than I have sort of touched on this, but I think there is the notion that if you just buy a really nice defense system, or you spend a lot of money on education, or you turn on multi-factor authentication, that all of this will be solved and you will not be the next victim. And then, you know, there's some people that acknowledge that security incidents aren't if but when, but I think that we should teach people to assume that you are breached now and build our infrastructure around that. So not that a breach will occur, but that you are breached now. If we adopt the mentality that somebody is already in there and we build around that, if we adopt a zero trust policy where we have to verify every time, that we have to have hardware-based keys for multi-factor authentication, that we have to segment networks so that if you get into one, you're not going to get around to the others. If you do that, then I think that's going to help a little more than just acknowledging that one day we probably will be breached, but we got this nice security system that'll stop it when it comes. If we build around the idea that, okay, somebody's already in there right now, what can we do, not knowing who they are, to prevent further damage?
Very insightful, thank you. So finally, for the cyber education and awareness, how does education, both formal and informal, play a role in preventing cybercrime? What can students do right now, even before graduation, to be part of the solution? So I'll start with one of our students, Blanca Negri.
I think education is extremely important. I think whether you're in the cybersecurity or computer science realm, I think everyone should get educated on this. I think, especially me personally, I'm on the women's soccer team. A lot of the times I educate my teammates. I always am making sure that they're aware, up to date. We get emails all the time about, oh, make sure you're aware of phishing scams, this and that, don't answer. But as students, a lot of the times we don't apply ourselves and we don't check our email. It's not something we do every single day. And so I think just education as a whole is just very important to make sure we're doing what we need, to making sure we update our passwords, we do the multi-factor authentication, and I think just applying that in our everyday life outside of education too, so like social media platforms, I mean that, because everything has your personal information stored, and I think it's just really important to apply yourself and make sure that you are doing the best security practices so that you are protecting yourself and those around you.
Thank you. Mr. Gladish?
I mean, another great answer by Blanca. She hit a lot of the high points on that one. I think it's a great thing just to make sure that with education, it's more than just formal, right? We got to make sure peer-to-peer and telling each other, hey, you know, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, especially with multi-factor authentication. But a lot of it comes down to the onus is on us for making sure that, especially the older generation, as was touched on earlier, they might not know a lot of these things are even possible, right? So if they're having their password as their favorite dog and they're always posting their favorite dog on Facebook, it's not going to take too many dictionary attacks to figure that one out. So it's on us to make sure that we're telling each other and we're keeping that message going so that we can have less cyber attacks.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley?
And I'm going to blame this one on Blanca as well.
Good job.
One of the things I learned is social engineering. So in a class for the IT, they had to develop a social engineering where, hey, it's finals time. Let's send out an email to everybody and say, hey, I'm this student. Can you look at this document and let me know, something? And here I am grading, that kind of stuff. And I see it and I just reply back, I can't open this document right now. But, they got me. It's like I looked at a document somebody sent me. So they have to be thinking about these things. They also have to learn about the bad things that people can do. It's like you have these contests where you try to take over another computer. You learn about the faults that are there, the ways you can slip in, so that you know how to protect yourself from other people as well. So it's the technical side. They need to learn that. How can they do it? But it's also the social engineering. How can you fool somebody into, believing you?
Do I have any additions from other panelists you might like to add? Okay. So speaking of our students, again, we're so fortunate to have a couple with us today. To our student panelists, what motivated you to study cybersecurity, and what has surprised you most about the field so far? So I'll ask CJ to start this time.
Personally, for me, I think ever since I was a kid, I was always like, I'm going to go into technology. I don't know where, but I'm going to be in there somewhere. And for the longest time, I thought that was software development. I didn't really know cybersecurity was really even like an option. But as soon as I did realize that that was an option I could go into, it immediately caught my attention. There's just so many different ways that you can be in this field. And I think the almost gamified version of technology, where you can be either a red team or blue team or anywhere in between, I think that was something that really sparked my interest. And it was really interesting to me to be able to have such a different kind of career that you're never going to be bored in. So I think that was something that really caught my attention.
Okay. Ms. Nagreet?
I think for me, I didn't really understand computer science and cybersecurity. It wasn't until I got into high school that I had one of my now mentors talk to me, and my brother was in AI and everything, and they said you should really try this out. So I started by just getting into regular computer science classes, and then towards the end of my high school, I joined a cybersecurity course, and in that I learned so much, and I learned what cybersecurity was, because I think in education it isn't very expressed on all the technical and the careers that you can get with computer science. Everyone just thinks, oh, you just code, or cybersecurity, you just hack into systems, and I think it's much deeper than that. So once I got into that cybersecurity course, I started going to hackathons. I participated in the Air Force Academy Cyber Patriot competition, and I think that's really what opened my eyes, because I got to work with actual networks and see how would I be on the defensive end, and how would I protect attacks and like pinging of systems and everything. So I think that's really what sparked my interest, and once I started looking into schools and everything, and I learned that this is actually a career path, it really just inspired me to continue and pursue that, because I think with technology advancing every day, we need more people in cybersecurity just to protect everyone in our private information.
Thank you both. All right, for everyone else on the panel, what advice would you give to students considering a career in cybersecurity, digital forensics, or related areas? Mr. Bradley, you want to kick us off?
Well, for the technical side, you're going to need a little math, and you're going to need to learn the technology, and that's a big part of it. But as was mentioned here, a biggest part of what you're going to be doing is working with people. And so public speaking, psychology. I had a niece who went here who was in theater, and learning to perform and interact with people, that's a big part of it.
I don't know if you guys picked the two best students or if they're all this smart, so this may be a dumb answer, but for me, what I always tell young people is that if you don't study this stuff on your free time, if you don't do this outside school or outside work, you're never going to understand as much as you need to know. For me, I might investigate a cryptocurrency scam during the day, but when I get home, I'm researching the latest and greatest in ransomware and how they're not using very sophisticated technology anymore. They're just telling people over the phone what they need them to do. They're social engineering them. You have to keep up with that. So study on your own. Certifications are great, and some places demand them, and they look really good on a resume, but there are going to be times where you have to talk the talk, and I don't really care if you have a certification or not. I don't know what your certifications are, but I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, man, where's our application at online? So that's just as important. So to students out there, don't bog yourself down with making sure you get all the CompTIA certifications and go into SANS courses or whatever. They're all really good and you'll learn a lot, but you can read blogs at night or get connected with people on LinkedIn that are subject matter experts and learn just as much.
Mr. Stubblefield or?
Yeah, I think one of the big things about it is just stay curious. You know, spin up a lab environment, break things, fix things, know how things work, figure out how to make something behave like it's not supposed to, because that's what the hackers are doing. You know, as you progress, you know, you may find something that interests you more than something else, so specialize in that, because you know, there's so many different things you can do in cybersecurity, that, you know, find something that you want to specialize in. And I think it's a little different perspective, but I think have realistic expectations when you start out. I started off in the help desk, and there's nothing wrong with starting off working in a help desk somewhere. Actually, a lot of big companies now are actively recruiting from the help desk, because those people know how to work with people, they have empathy towards others. So, you know, that's an important thing, and don't be, there's nothing wrong starting off in a totally entry-level position. You know, you're not gonna graduate with your undergrad, get a couple of certs, and then instantly start making $250,000. You know, you've got to have expectations, but just stay curious all the time.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill, would you like to add something?
I went through the Federal Electronic Crime Special Agent Program in 2004, and when I went through this, it was a group of law enforcement officers from across the country, and I found there were two types of people going into this XEP program, and that was cops that got assigned the job of doing computer crime investigations, and geeks that went into law enforcement. I was one of the geeks that went into law enforcement. But as I said, there wasn't the degree programs at the time for cybersecurity or digital forensics, because this was focused on digital forensics. But I just want to echo what they were saying, that those of us that this was our hobby, this was our interest, and this is what we did at night when we weren't working, was we learned more about it. We're the ones that were really good at it and that made a difference. Point though is that the government needs people that do this. And we need that talent, and this is where at the time it was lacking, because it was, you know, okay, you're a cop and we're going to assign you this job of doing this. We need the people that have this interest and this talent and this education going into government roles, which don't necessarily make $250,000 a year, but the things that they do are vital and important.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to that point, if I can,
Yeah.
Shameless plug as well. We can teach anybody to be a police officer, but we can't teach all police officers to fully embrace this industry and love, you know, doing this on their own, being curious. You can't teach that.
Thank you, everyone. So cybersecurity often involves navigating gray areas, right? Privacy, security, and law do not always align neatly. How do you navigate ethical decisions in your role when these lines blur? Are there any principles or frameworks that help guide you? And so we'll start again with Mr. O'Neill.
I teach criminal justice ethics here, so if you want my answer, take my class.
Oh, can you give us 2 minutes of it? Preview.
It's actually been interesting putting out discussions and having people talk about ethical decisions that don't get that there's sometimes a difference between what is legal and what is ethical. And it goes in both directions. Sometimes the ethically right thing to do, you have some legal hoops to jump through first. Like if we're looking at, we know that a crime has been committed and it's probably, their evidence is probably on this person's phone, we can't just take their phone and search it. We have to make sure that we get subpoenas, search warrants, we do things the right way. And the flip side is, just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's the ethical thing to do as well. You know, there's a lot to this, and it's from the law enforcement side of things. legal is the first thing that we have to make sure that no matter what, we're doing everything legally. But we have to, especially at a university, we have to look at not just the ethical thing, not just the legal thing. Well, it is a legal thing. We have to look at people's privacy rights too. FERPA is important. We can't. One of the things I've run into is outside departments doing investigations, coming here wanting to know information about a student. Go get a judicial subpoena, because I know that you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to investigate a crime that may involve one of our students, but I can't give you that information because federal law says I can't give you that information. So we try to make sure that we are following all the legal requirements.
Special Agent Miller?
From an agency perspective, a lot of this is just hiring the right people. If you don't hire somebody with ethical and moral guidelines higher than average, then you sort of open the door to some of these issues. But I think it's important that organizations, agencies empower their people to do the right thing, especially in investigations. In cyber, even more specifically, there aren't rules for some of this stuff. There's no precedent. There hasn't been a criminal case yet. I'm one of the only cyber people in West Tennessee. Often, I'm the first person to have done something, and I don't say that from an arrogant standpoint, but there's no rule book on how you're supposed to work a case. And so if you're not thinking about the ethical side, he mentioned a lot of very specific examples. Privacy is number one. The Fourth Amendment says we can't just search through people's phone because we think there's something there. We have to get the judge to give us permission. And you have to abide by that. The law may be black and white, but at the end of the day, there aren't answers for everything. And empowering your people to make the right decision, which TBI does a great job of. Our director says all the time, if you'll do the right thing, I'm not worried about anything else. And so knowing that my investigation may take a toll from making the correct moral and ethical decision is not a concern, because I'm empowered to do that. I'm not going to be punished or critiqued for not getting to a certain goal because I made the right decision. I think that's important for leadership to understand.
Thank you. Mr. Stubblefield, would you like to share the IT security administrator perspective?
Yeah. So anytime that I'm involved with anything, whether it's some sort of incident or investigation, I've got to ask myself some questions before I'm doing it and during. Is there a legitimate purpose for what I'm doing? I've been assigned a task. Is there a legitimate purpose for what I'm about to do? Do the actions that I'm about to take or am taking exceed the scope of what's needed to accomplish my goal of investigation? I don't want to go outside of the parameters of my investigation. And then, are my actions going to cause harm? Those are really the things that when I'm having to look through different things to see, a phishing email or for instance, I need to stay within those parameters to find that phishing email and what happened. I can very easily veer off of that, but again, the ethics come into play, and I've got to go through my questions and make sure that what I'm doing is on point.
Thank you. So I didn't warn the students I was going to ask them, but you guys have to make ethical decisions in relation to being students in cybersecurity. Do you have anything you'd like to add from that perspective?
Yeah, for sure. Throw one on me, Dr. Ferris.
I love you.
So there's all the times where, like they were saying earlier, where if you're really in this, if this mindset is really something that you have, that you do it at all times that you can. And I know for me, whenever I'm not in class, there's often times where I'm creating home labs, I'm building things up, I'm doing CTFs, and there's certain times where you have to realize like scope and parameters of what you're doing to make sure that, yeah, you can do these things, and maybe it's not illegal, but should you, even though it's in pursuit of knowledge, some things you have to make sure you're in the right ethical code. Even if you're trying to learn things and you're trying to not do anything necessarily harmful, you just want to make sure that you're always in the right state of mind when you're doing it, to where even if you think you're doing the right thing, you're not accidentally veering over into it could be ethically questionable.
I think especially in studying in this field, we are learning a lot of resources, we're learning a lot of skills that are very life applicable. And I think just knowing that when we are practicing what we are learning, it's just making sure we are making ethical decisions. I also work at the ITS help desk, so like working there, I learn a lot about the system, this and that, and knowing that it's like I have to make ethical decisions. Like I have information and things, but I'm not going to disclose anything. Like working with people, oh, I got locked out of my account again, just having those personal disclosures, like we aren't allowed to give any information to parents. Parents are calling, trying to get into students' accounts and things like that. So it's just making sure all decisions we make are following ethics and just we are morally doing the correct thing, regardless of situations.
So curiosity is important, but curiosity with a compass is what really drives things and what makes the difference for us. Good. All right, so we're kind of closing up our questions from my point of view from the panel, but as we close, I'd like to do a quick round robin with all of our panelists. And since we started with you with intros, we will start with you, Mr. Stubblefield, with this and just kind of come down the table through that. But whether you're a student, a specialist, what is one action that anyone can take today to become part of the cybersecurity solution?
I think the biggest thing is never be afraid to ask questions. No one does know or can know every single thing there is about cybersecurity. So no matter what you do, don't be afraid to ask questions. And part of that is keep learning. You know, try to learn something new every day. I try to do that, whether it's cybersecurity related or just something totally different. I want to learn one thing. If you keep learning, everything changes, especially in cybersecurity. So don't be afraid to ask questions and keep learning. And then, especially for the students or those new in cyber, find a mentor. Find someone that you can connect with in the industry to ask questions and get guidance. I think that's a very important thing.
I have a few things in my notes, but be vigilant and report suspicious activity is the main thing that I have. Cybersecurity isn't just, we've already talked about over and over again. It's not just one agency's job. It's not just IT's job. It's not just police's job. It's everybody's job. And if I tell everybody about crime on campus, if you see something, say something. Well, it's the same thing with cybersecurity. If you get a weird email, report it. If you get a phishing attack, report it. We can't do anything about it if it's not reported. So that's my one thing.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley?
Keep in mind there's tons of resources out there. I mean, you can take online classes for free. You can watch videos about anything on YouTube. So cybersecurity programming languages, just like you said at night, you know, instead of watching some show, just take a few minutes, a few hours, watch something, learn something, keep learning.
All very good suggestions. I'm going to be more specific. Use a password manager and use a different password for every service in case one's compromised. You don't really have to worry about the other ones. And then, especially to the students out there, share your knowledge with your family. Prevent victimization to those around you. You've got all this knowledge and empowerment, and one day your parents or your grandparents or your aunts and uncles will be more of your problem than you anticipate. And it will have been a shame if something happened to them that you could have prevented knowing what you know.
All very good answers. Of course, a general one would just be to make sure that you are extending that education like we had said earlier. But for a specific one, I would say, and you've probably heard it a lot, but it's very important, two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. It's talked about a lot for a reason. You're going to need to have it, especially in the days of where we have such high-level brute force attacks. It's so easy to get your password nowadays. So just make sure that you do have more than one step for authentication.
I think for me, what I would recommend is just making sure that you're always learning more about cybersecurity, just safe practices, and I would just really emphasize on making sure you ask. I know someone else mentioned that as well, but I would say, especially if you have any questions, you can always call the ITS help desk, say, hey, I have a question, I received this, and if you have something that is suspicious, just email it and like report it, because in those cases if you don't report it then it's going to continue to get sent and then it might affect someone else. So make sure you just are doing your part and trying to contribute to help prevent these cybersecurity scams from continue to like spread across campus.
Thank you all for sharing your insights. Could we give them a round of applause real quick? So we'd like to open the floor now to questions from the audience. If you can raise your hand. Do we have a mic for audience members, or do we? Yeah, that way if we're sharing it with the video, if you have a question. But you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. So let her get that real quick. Yes. Okay, well, I will share mine.
Well, here, we can use one of these and share the.
I'm Harriet Spiegel, and I'm faculty. And I also am very aware of what I don't know. And I worry about it all the time. But today I got an email back saying that I had properly reported the phishing or whatever you all sent out. But my question was going to be, couldn't somebody come up with a tool that, and obviously they haven't done it yet, on a computer would sort of beep beep warn you that something's happening?
I think that's your guy right there on the end. He's the tool guy.
That would be, I mean, yes, that is a great idea, and that would make everyone's job so easy. But
Senior
there are more.
Project. Senior design project.
Yes, yeah, that's a very good one. You know, there are more. It's one of those where there's more exceptions, and it would take a lot. And then because privacy comes into this also, because my first thought is you would need some sort of AI watching, so then it can recognize, but then it's got to look at everything you do, so then your privacy comes into question. So it's a balancing act between protection and privacy. So where, you know, you've got to give up one to have the other. So, you know, I don't have a good question.
It's also a balancing act because the bad guys know that you're doing that. And so they write the code to just not be detected. And so if you'll remember, I just remember when we got our first computer, you know, we bought Norton antivirus. And then antivirus really didn't do enough. And so they started making other tools. There's EDRs. I'm sure you guys have some endpoint detection and response. It's like a beefy antivirus. Well, now the ransomware guys, the really bad cyber criminals, just write code that's not detected. And if you go detect it, they'll change it and you can't detect it. So it's a good question that the bad guys are thinking about too.
It's a race,
Yep.
you know.
Cat and
You have the good guys moving forward and the bad guys and it's just constantly you're paying attention to what the others are doing. But there are tools. I mean, of course, he mentioned antivirus, right? Yep. And having that protection that sort of it does help. It helps with those things that are coming, and they have tools to check to determine, is this phishing, but things are still going to come through, correct? So there's no perfect answer because, again, humans are part of it, and they're part of the race to, you know, sometimes take advantage of people, but also to defend against those attacks. Absolutely. Any other questions? Please. Oh, yes. Thank you.
I have a son who is in IT, and I'm very thankful for that because a lot of times I said, what do I do to fix this? This is a question for both TBI and campus. With the movement of different changes in the technology at a rapid pace, when you encounter a case that you've not seen before, can you explain the steps you take to try to resolve the issue?
Great question.
I keep a really strong Rolodex of experts. Some of the stuff you can't Google. You know, I don't even know I don't know what words to put in there. So it's all about relationships. We talked about partnerships earlier, but even more on a micro level. I mean, I couldn't do this without the people that have already paved the way in front of me. I don't know everything. I don't even know how to look up what I'm trying to find sometimes. So I think any IT professional would laugh. It's kind of like a running joke in the IT community that if not for Google, nobody would really have a job, because you can't know everything, so you have to have some kind of resource to be able to look it up, especially help desk. I bet if we put down our pride, we would acknowledge that we're just Googling answers in real time because we don't know everything.
I keep a very light Rolodex. I call TBI and let them do that.
Okay, I'm going to channel my inner conspiracy theory because a while back, my husband's company that he used to work for, they didn't get their paychecks because the person at the Treasury or the department at the Treasury that does the direct deposit glitched and didn't release it. So here's my question. Because everything money is digital, are we looking at ways to prevent attacks from that happening? Because that would be really bad if I wake up and my check never hits. And then it's fine for a day or two, but then a month or 2 months because a foreign industry kind of took over. So is the FBI, well, FBI is not here, TBI or us, are we looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, the attack that we worry about now as far as payroll goes is called a payroll redirect, and that's just the bad guy getting in and changing the direct deposit account number. It happens often. The money goes through 4 days later. You're like, okay, I gave you some grace, but I still don't have my check. I'm not aware of anything more sophisticated than that. Yeah, at the end of the day, it is all digital, but you've got money in A that needs to go to B, and we just kind of figure out how to get it there if something doesn't go right. I mean, you could have a catastrophic system takedown. I don't know how the university works, but the state, we all work through one system. Every state employee is kind of backboned by one system. If that system went down, that would be catastrophic, but that would be not necessarily a payroll attack. That would just be like a, something larger. But if anybody has a different thought on that, I'm welcome to learn too. But
it needs to be open, not just payroll, just government money,
yeah, I mean, banking security is a huge concern, and I think that the regulatory part of banking ensures that doesn't happen, hopefully. But banks are victims too sometimes. We're not all perfect, or none of us are perfect is what I meant to say.
We have time for at least one more question. Okay. Anybody online? Interested?
You mentioned a password manager. Are there password managers that you would recommend, or any that you would definitely not recommend that we use?
I am bound to not answer that like you want me to. If you just Google best password managers, you'll probably be okay. There are good ones, and there are great ones that are not expensive, and there are good ones that are free. That's what I would do. I would like to answer that, but they don't like me doing that.
I would say,
there you go. If anybody else has a recommendation.
yeah, I would say when you're Googling, do a search for password manager breach and avoid those.
There's one in particular.
Yes.
And also when you're Googling, the first ones are always ads. Skip the ads and find
Good
the real
point.
reviews. Yeah.
In the fine print, it always says ads, so just keep scrolling and then you'll see the other ones.
Thank you all. Wonderful questions. We really appreciate your insights or questions and responses. It's encouraging to see how curious everyone is about this topic. And so as we wrap up, I want to thank our panelists for their time, your expertise, your service, both on and off campus in keeping our digital and physical spaces secure. Cybersecurity is truly a shared mission. It depends on collaboration, it depends on ethics, education, and awareness, and it involves every one of us. Thank you all for being here today and being part of the conversation. Let's give our panelists one more round of applause. We will have in a few minutes, I know we're ending a little bit earlier than we'd intended, but we will have a couple of folks doing a cybersecurity awareness Kahoot. These are Hunter Stevens and Claire, remind me Claire's, Bullington. They'll be here in a few minutes, but you guys can stick around if you want to talk one-on-one with our panelists here. And in about a few minutes, they'll be setting up that Kahoot if you'd like to do an interactive cybersecurity game. So thank you very much.